Welcome to 1202, the Human Factors Podcast. The podcast that covers all things about humans, technology, and particularly the bit in between.
Hi, and welcome to this episode of 1202, the Human Factors Podcast. This one is different. This is all about Ergonomics and Human Factors Conference 2022, and it's where I've messed up and I was supposed to take loads of gear with me, so we got lots of interviews. If you've listened to some previous episodes of either this or Human Factors Cast, then you'll realize that I left the books and cables at home. So what I had to do was engage with lots of people who attended the conference after the fact and do some recording and do some interviews. And I'm really pleased to say that we've had a really great take-up and been able to interview 5 or 6 different people, all with different roles to play within the conference. So we've got Tina Worthy, who helped oversee and organise quite a lot of things. Becky Charles, who was the one of the lead organisers in the organisation. Florek, who was a session chair, and we talked to Kate Preston and Amy Ferguson, who were part of the secretariat and did a whole lot of pushing people around. And we also talked to Ryan Priest, one of the attendees of the virtual part of the conference, all with a view to try and get in the different flavours and what they thought about the different bits from their perspective. I will put it all out on the table that this is my first time of doing any sort of multi-editing on a video side of things. So this is hopefully going to be relatively polished, but it's not going to be as polished as it could be. So please bear with me when this, particularly if you're watching this on the video through YouTube or whatever, then it is not going to be as polished as it could be. But it's either wait forever until I get the skills to be able to do it full on. But this is a learning experience for us all. We're going to cluster the questions around 4 or 5 different bits, really about introducing the people who were willing to be interviewed, and about what do they do on their day job and how they got involved in the conference. Then one about what they thought about that live virtual mix, and looking at their conference highlights. Coupled with this, we've also done a bit of reflection on our sister podcast, Human Factors Cast. So I'd thoroughly recommend that after this one has gone live, it'll go live with Human Factors Cast as well, where Nick has a chat with me about my thoughts around the conference. But fundamentally for me, this was a brilliant conference. It was our first step back into that whole meeting people again. There was people who I thought only existed on 2D on a computer screen, because we've only interacted by Zoom or by Teams or whatever. And it was actually really nice to see people in person. It was also really fun to catch up with people who we haven't seen for 3 or 4 years. So that was really good in of itself. But then there was also a wealth of information, a wealth of research that's been done, a wealth of work that has been really taking advantage of this COVID period. And so that was really fascinating to see that people hadn't just stood around and waited for things to resume. Also, from my perspective, it was the first time I'd looked at the conference from that perspective of being more involved. So now that I'm now president-elect of the Chartered Institute of Ergonomics and Human Factors, it gave me a really different perspective, or it made me look at things differently. And so it was really nice to be able to get a real appreciation of what goes on in the background, some of which we'll hear from in the clips today. So when you next go to a conference, hopefully this will give you a bit more of an insight into what goes on in the background. I would also encourage you to go back and look at the episode I did with David Golightly and Nora Balfe, who they were largely led the team that organised all the papers and the content of the conference, the academic content of the conference. And so you get a bit of an idea about what they got up to in order to get us the content that we needed for the conference in of itself. So I'll start waffling on at this point. You'll see lots of different clips being played, and if this comes across well on video as well as the audio, I'd be really keen for your feedback. So drop me a message on any of the socials that we use. But as for now, let's get into hearing from the interviewees, and we start off with Tina Worthy, and ask Tina to give us a bit of an insight into what she does as in her role as Chief Operating Officer of the CIHF.
Yeah, thanks for that introduction, Barry. Yeah, I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Chartered Institute of Ergonomics and Human Factors, which means that I try and make things run smoothly, make them more efficient. We organise events, we accredit people and courses. So it's my job really to make sure all those things work. We have the resources to make them work, and that people enjoy the experience.
Which I think you do amazingly well, because there is never anything that doesn't seem to happen or go off the way it's supposed to. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Is obviously that the conference has just ended, both elements of the conference. Sounds a bit of a stupid question, but how do you get involved in the conference? What, apart from doing pretty much, steering the ship, what do you do at conference? What's your role?
Well, there's lots of work that goes on before the conference starts, which I'm involved in, from marketing the event in the beginning, getting people to submit papers for the conference, helping to organise the reviewing, going through the programme, putting the programme together. This is all with help from members and other colleagues. And then making sure that we can get people there, making sure that the event itself is well run. So during the event, then I'm there on hand to answer any questions or anything, but also just to oversee, because by that stage, again, other people have sort of taken over the worrying about it. So the venue and the secretariat there doing a great job, and of course our other colleagues as well, helping to run it and make sure again that people get the best out of it and have a good time.
Sure, I'm Becky Charles, and I am an inspector at the Rail Accident Investigation Branch. So it was about 11 years ago when I started on the secretariat in 2011 at Stoke Rochford, and then I've kept turning up ever since. And I've done many roles to do with the conference, so including being programme co-chair, which I did for 5 years, and gave over to the lovely Nora Balfe this year. Yeah, lots of things. And for the past 11 years, I have been running the secretariat with Tina. So you might have seen me running around with a yellow T-shirt on this year.
And getting chivying of people around everywhere. I was always getting told off before pretty much every single session by Becky, but you need to go here now. Okay.
Yeah, I get very good at herding people around.
How did you feel? Obviously, this, as you said, you've been co-program chair for 5 years, and this year you handed up. How did you feel to be handing over the power? Were you looking over, sort of going, well, they haven't done that quite the way I would do it?
No, not at all. I think it's one of those things where it needs new people, and I think I'd done my time. I think 5 years, and I'd done the 2 online conferences, which we were really chuffed with, and I think they went really, really well. And I just think it was time for a bit of a change. I think Nora and Dave are doing a fab job. So, yeah.
Awesome. And for those of you who want to see what Nora and Dave were up to, then or their plans were, I did a previous interview with them, and I shall put the link to that in the show notes.
My name is Florek. I'm a human factors specialist at Arrival. I am designing interfaces for electric cars. And I'm also an aviation safety student at Cranfield University, where I do my master's degree.
That's cool. So we have something in common then, because I did my bachelor's degree at Shrivenham, which is also part of Cranfield.
Great.
So it's a small, this whole human factors thing, it's a very small world.
Oh, yeah.
How did you get involved? What was your part in the conference?
So my intention from the very beginning, when I learned that the conference will be hybrid this year, there will be mixed virtual and physical, I wanted to be involved like straight away. And I think on one occasion I mentioned to Tina that I want to be involved if there is anything I can help with. I'm more than happy. So, and just a few weeks before the conference, I just found that my very good colleague, Nora Balfe, suggested that I could chair one of the technical sessions. So Rachel and David just got in touch with me, and I agreed with great pleasure.
Fantastic. So you being one of the session chairs is about making sure that the entire, so not just individual papers, but the entire session runs properly. People come up, they get introduced, and then you handle the questions at the end. What sort of preparation, what sort of things did you have to do to be ready to do that sort of role? Yeah.
So I have to thank you very much for the guide that was prepared by the Institute, how you actually, prep yourself to the role. it's not as scary as it sounds. Even if you're afraid of public talking, which I'm working just to reduce this, but if I can give any advice, just do your background reading on those documents, on those papers. And my biggest worry was that there will be no questions. So I was ready in that sense that I had 3-4 questions as a backup, 1-2 questions for each speaker, just in case, if there will be no traction from the audience.
So did you get into that position at all, or did you have questions and it was all happy, or?
Actually, no, I was quite surprised. The session was relatively small comparing to big competitors from healthcare and other industries. But we managed to present 5 presentations. Some of them were pre-recorded, but the audience was very active, very responsive. So I personally asked a few questions myself, but I got enough interest from the audience, and seems like there was quite a discussion afterward with few speakers who were attending in person.
I guess it is one of the advantages of being the session chair, is that if you do have a pressing question, then you can shove everybody else's question to one side and take the privilege of
take the advantage of being on the stage. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly, yes.
And now we're going to talk to Kate and her experiences of being at the EHF 2022 this year. Kate, welcome, and thank you for coming to have a chat with us after the conference.
Yeah.
Could you just give everybody a bit of an introduction to who you are and what you're doing and why you're vaguely interested in human factors in the first place?
Yeah, of course. So I am a PhD research student at the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow, Scotland, for anybody who doesn't know that. And I kind of mostly focus in my PhD on human factors and AI technology in hospitals. And basically my aim is to kind of make sure that any future AI is kind of integrated, safe, and made for those who are kind of going to be interacting with it, basically. And it's just a interesting world to be within, actually. And I also have just started as co-chair of the special interest group in AI and digital health, so really looking forward to getting stuck in with that as well.
That's cool. I think we've got a meeting coming up soon. That's a really interesting part, because I mean, God forbid we actually get users involved in the use of AI in healthcare, isn't it? It's still, I still find it quite stunning that people think that we still need to do that, but never mind. So you're also involved in the conference. You're quite heavily involved in the conference because you were one of the secretariat. So what did you have to do? What does the secretariat do on a day-to-day basis with this?
Oh God, we did so much. We had a kind of brief call beforehand where we discussed what our roles would be, but it was a case of kind of go in and just get stuck in. So at the start, we were kind of handing out your lanyards and your passes, which was a lot of kind of interacting with different people, and also you get to see people's names before they come in and be like, that's who you are. I followed you for a long time. And then after everybody's kind of settled in, it was a lot of running around and trying to find presenters to, one, know what they look like so you can kind of catch them later, and also to make sure that they actually sent their presentation in.
Yeah. And
then kind of the main event, when you're sitting presenting, we are those really annoying people who hold up a sign being like, please can you stop talking now, because we're trying to keep to schedule, basically. So yeah, those were kind of the 3 main things, but there was just a lot of kind of making sure everything was running smoothly, and holding mics as well for questions, running around after people. It was really fun though.
Good. I felt kind of guilty and sometimes, because I'm one of these unfortunate people who likes asking questions. And you just see people sort of, somebody'd ask a question at the back of the room, and then I'd be sat near the front of the room, and I was like, I don't mean to make you run all this way. I'm really sorry, but I really wanted to ask a question.
I know, that's the lucky thing about being in the healthcare room. It's a bit smaller, so the running around wasn't quite as extensive, which is nice.
But you had some arguments in that room. I was there for some of them. There was some intense conversation going on.
Oh, there's a lot on safety 1 and safety 2, which I know is a big debate at the moment, but that was quite hefty in that room.
But again, that was one of the cool things about conference, wasn't it? You could actually have them discussions rather than with sometimes. That's one of my downsides of the online stuff, isn't it? You necessarily can't get stuck into that or continue the conversation maybe over a drink or something like that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So being involved as a member of the Secretariat, how did you find that out? How did you get involved with that in the first place? How does that happen?
Well, it's actually funny because, I read the Institute's newsletters.
Oh, well done.
Come in weekly. I know. And that's how I found it. It said, we're looking for students to be, volunteer secretariats at our next conference. And I immediately was like, that is an amazing opportunity. You don't only get to see the background of the conference, but also you do get to get your face out there.
Yes.
And as someone who is in a department at Strathclyde that isn't, a human factors department, I'm in the pharmacy, kind of health service research. It was just so nice to kind of get in there. And basically, when immediately after I saw that, I sent that to Amy, my fellow PhD, and said, let's do it. And we did. And the rest is history.
Awesome. Hi, Amy. Thanks for joining us today on the 1202 podcast. And before we get into the conference and that sort of stuff, could you just tell us a bit about who you are and what you do in real life, as it were?
Of course. So I am currently a second year PhD student at the University of Strathclyde up in Glasgow since 2014. Undergrad honours degree in psychology. I then did the in research methods in psychology. I worked for a year and a half as a research assistant, and I then applied for a PhD, and this is me now. So I am doing my PhD in human factors in remote consultations in primary care in particular. So yes, I have been so far doing a systematic literature review, which I'm in the final stages of. It's exciting. It's taken a long time.
You're the first person I've heard talk about literature review is exciting. So that's going for you.
It's more I'm at the latter stages of it.
At the other end, yes.
And I'm kind of using the findings from it to build an interview schedule to interview some pharmacists about why they are and aren't using video consultations, and I'm using or attempting to use the SEEPS model to do that. So yeah, that's
cool.
Well,
that sounds like you definitely got your hands full then. So in amongst all doing that, you volunteered to be part of the Ergonomics conference this year as well. So how did that all come about?
So we received an email back in, I think it was January. And the opening line was something really exciting, like, would you like a free ticket to the Ergonomics conference? And I was like, oh my god, yes. What do I need to do?
Yeah.
And Tina had just explained that you could be a member of the Secretariat team. Basically, you would be volunteering to help in the conference and just make sure that everyone who's attending has like a really. And I thought, well, I'm up for that, and I also would really like to attend. So email just telling her a little bit about me and why I really want to do it. I then had a short chat with the head of the Secretariat team. We just had a wee chat about my work and what we want to get out of it and things like that. And thankfully, I managed to get one of the spaces. I think there was 12 applicants and only 6 spaces, so it was a nerve-wracking couple of days because I really wanted the space.
Brilliant.
So yeah, I'm really thankful that I got a space.
Awesome. So when you actually got to conference then, for those who aren't aware of what the Secretariat do and that type of thing, can you just describe the sort of things they had you doing?
Yes, so we kind of do everything in the background. So for example, on the first day I was on the registration desk, and we sort of try and grab everyone coming in the front door, tick their list, make sure you've got any presenters' presentations already uploaded onto the computer system, and give people their badges. And that's also a really good time to put a face to a name. If you've been reading some, you think, oh, I really want to know who that is and what they look like, so that I can point them later on for a chat. So that was good. We then are in charge of kind of like really just making sure people have like the best experience possible. So making sure that things run on time. So I'm kind of herding people into rooms, making sure they know where they're going, keeping them in track. And then during the sessions, we were kind of in charge of timings. So, we had these little posters that say 5 minutes left to go, 2 minutes to go, and then a really slightly polite, slightly cheeky one that says, please stop talking now.
stage.
So yeah, we were in charge of that, and initially I was like, oh god, that's going to be quite scary. Like, we're in charge of making sure that everything finishes on time, but actually it was really good fun, and thankfully all the presenters were quite they were very aware of it. We had a chat with them beforehand and just said,
Perfect. And obviously, this year was a strange year because we're coming out of the pandemic. It's the first tentative steps towards actually seeing that people are real, as opposed to just being 2D on screen. What did you think of the in reflection? What did you think of the live virtual mix that you had?
Yeah, I thought it worked quite well. We had good audiences for both. I think what we were trying to do in having that split between the virtual and the in-person event was to make sure we didn't lose any of the good things that we got from having to be online for quite so long. So the accessibility of people just being able to pop up on screen or listen to things or join in like that. And also the reach of it as well. We had far more sort of more attendance really from people overseas, our big international audience that we've built up, and we really didn't want to lose that. And we also, of course, wanted to get it back to face as soon as we could. So I think this was probably the right time of year. We've just come out of sort of 2 years of really tough times, and people were looking to come back to a sort of well-organized, sort of lively event, which I hope we managed to do.
I think you certainly did, especially with the magician's antics as well. I've never seen a Rubik's Cube used in quite such a way.
In person, so I just got to experience the online one fully.
Cool. So yeah, it was. I mean, the online drinking isn't the same as the in-person networking, should we say? But it's still great, I guess, from this perspective that you were still able to engage with it with half the conference, which is fab.
Yeah.
What did you think of that live virtual, that ability to engage with it virtually?
I was quite excited. It was a nice idea. Support, you said the last two, I believe, have all been online. So I think they've definitely got a good thing there. It's a good way to get people everywhere involved, not just the people who can just turn up. Like, obviously with COVID, I imagine I was not the only one who couldn't go. So I thought it was quite nice.
Cool. What did you think? Obviously, this year was new because of the pandemic and all that sort of stuff, and it was our first tentative steps towards actually realizing that the people are 3D rather than just 2D on screens. What did you think of that live virtual mix?
I thought it was brilliant. I think it was a very clever and nice way of sort of easing us back into sort of in-person conferences, because as we said before we came on, that we're both exhausted after just like running around for 2 days. But I also think with the online conferences the past couple of years, we've really learned that it opens it up to so many more people. And the past couple of years that we were purely online, we had papers from all over the world, from so many different countries, and so many people sort of tuning in to the online conference. So I think it was really important this year to kind of keep that going, keep that momentum going. We've reached out to so many more people who now know what ergonomics and human factors is, thanks to the online conference, I think.
Yeah, I think that first bit was really interesting because the first session that I was in, we had Paul Salmon chairing it from Australia, and in Australia we had Andrew Thatcher, who's in South Africa, and then there were a couple of us who were in Wales and a couple of people in England. And I was like, that you just wouldn't get that that complex mix without lots of travel.
No.
That's good.
I think it's brilliant, and it means you can dip in and out, and the sessions are recorded. You can go back later and watch them again, and I just think it's brilliant.
So what did you think? Obviously, this year was a bit different because we were coming out of the pandemic. It's the first live thing, or that we had that live virtual mix. What did you think of that? How do you think that worked?
I think that's a really great opportunity because, not only did people who didn't want to go in person, they still don't feel comfortable, get to be involved in the conference, but also you got to get through a lot more research than you would if it was just, 2-day conference in person. So you got more research and you got to see more. And it also meant that I got to go to the virtual one a bit later because I was at another conference that day.
Cool. So you could basically work it around the other stuff you were doing as well. I've got to admit that I was at home and being able to drop into some of the live virtual bits. But then when I had a meeting or whatever, I could either have it on the background and watch it again later. So it did make it very, very convenient. So if you had to pick one, I know it's difficult to do this, but what would be your conference highlight? Or you can have a couple if you want.
Oh, conference highlight. I think it was seeing actual people. I think it was just being there and realizing what a great community we are, really, and what a great bunch we are. And there's so many brilliant people. But I really enjoyed Susie Broadbent's Institute lecture on the Friday. That really resonated with me. And I've spoken to a few people since that it did as well. Just that whole, how do we present ourselves as ergonomists and how do we go about our day job? And I thought that was brilliant. And the other one for me was it was a little talk. It was a short talk. I'm looking at my notes right now. It was Natalie Short, actually, and she was talking about usability engineering requirements in the UK. And she works for Harvey Medical. And I've seen her present a few times. And she's really interesting and engaging in how she talks about these tools and techniques, because let's face it, tools and techniques aren't the easiest thing to talk about and be engaging about. But she mentioned something when she was doing this medical usability testing, that she can have 5 people or 6 people, something that's not statistically significant anyway, but they can still pick up 97% of the issues.
Wow, okay.
That they need to find with using those 5 people. And that really stuck with me. And especially after listening to Susie's talk as well, where, we don't often get access to hundreds and hundreds of people for days and days at a time. And, to just hear that from somebody, I thought that was really, really brilliant.
Yeah, the whole thing that what Susie did was sort of cite that the differences almost, or the strained relationship to a certain extent between academia and practicality, which did cause a bit of tension in the room.
It did.
but to me, that was also the value of conference, is that we can come together and actually, one of the things Susie said is we need to get better at talking or relating the academia and industry or the practical application together. And that's the sort of thing it's harder to do remote. Is to be able to get in, because I know quite a few people then went to the bar afterwards and were still talking about it. So it had significant impact. It's probably hard to pick for you given the depth of your involvement. But what were your conference highlights? What were the things that you were like, wow, that's good? What did you take away?
Yeah, I think I think Susie Broadbent actually said in her institute lecture, just seeing all their little faces. So it was more for me about just seeing people have a good time and meeting each other again after so long, and thinking that we'd been party to that. We'd been able to put that together. Of course, there were some great keynotes and lectures and all the presentations, and I guess another one of my highlights really is just seeing how much effort people put into their own presentations and coming along and getting involved in the event and really sort of helping us to enjoy it as well through their own sort of their own attendance and enjoying it themselves.
What do you think your conference highlight was?
I particularly loved that I was surrounded by people who knew what human factors was. The amount of times where people say, "Oh, what are you doing?" and you say human factors and blah blah blah, and they go, "Human factors," and you try and describe it, and they look at you like, "No, don't know what you mean." So I just loved it, and I loved being able to put faces to names, and because I was part of the secretariat who were, pinpointing people and telling them, let's get moving. And also the bright yellow polo shirts we were wearing, which made us stand out.
Certainly did. The new fashion line.
It gave us a really, really good opportunity to chat to people that maybe we have been, reading their research and thinking, well, I would really like to ask them a bit more about that, or just to introduce ourselves so that in the future, if we do questions, that we can feel less nervous about getting in touch with them.
So I guess that really great opportunity, like I said, to use that networking for the good of for the good of your research, and not just the way I was doing it in terms of working out who else was drinking with me in the evening. So throughout the whole conference, I guess all of it really, was there any particular highlights, something that stood out for you as like, wow, that's really cool?
Yeah, so I have to say big thank you and big kudos to the organization team, because they did an incredible job. It was my first live event for probably most of us, a very long time, and they really pulled this out to the level that was beyond my expectations. But my personal highlights, I guess. Two lectures probably stand out the most. Professor Neville Stanton on human reactions in automotive and autonomous vehicles. It's just a highlight of my professional life for the last couple of years, working in the industry. So that was great to see, and great to see engagement from the audience about this challenging and sometimes controversial topic. Also, Professor Leonard O'Sullivan from Limerick, I think that was a great emphasis on the user-centered design aspects in exoskeletons, or very similar semi-robotic devices that enhance, provide more value to our lives, help us with this. And also, I really want to thank you to Ron McLeod to officially present the white paper, because that's the great read for everybody, especially I'm listening here from my colleagues, students, how great value it provides to your today daily life. So that's probably something that really tells a lot about the quality of and the outcome from his and the institute work. But on this occasion, I also wanted to congratulate my colleagues, my fellow students for presenting their work, because I was very positively surprised to see how many faces are from Cranfield University.
Yes, you need to fly that Cranfield flag. That's cool.
Oh yeah.
Did you learn anything new? Was there anything there that you're just like, wow, that's a proper takeaway that I'm going to use in the future?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. My head is buzzing with thoughts and like ideas from my research, and future ideas and where I want to go as well. And I just, like I said before, I think the main kind of thing I learned is how important it is to tell everybody about human factors.
Yeah.
How, whenever you go meet someone new, you're like, have you heard of human factors? I am going to become that really annoying person who's like, you've got a problem. Have you thought about human factors? Oh, you teach. Have you taught human factors? I'm going to be that person. And maybe annoying, but I think it's important.
It is, and I think from my perspective, just knowing that we maybe encourage a new brand ambassador, then that's a fantastic win for the human factors domain.
Definitely.
Hopefully that gave you a bit of an insight into what happened at Ergonomics and Human Factors 2022, particularly what goes on in the background and what goes on under the covers, as it were, about how to make that conference happen for you. If you got any comments or you've got any queries around what you thought of the production of this podcast, this is a new one for me, and I recognise it's very rough around the edges, and I've got a lot to learn. But if this type of approach is good, bad, indifferent, I'm all up for the criticism. So feel free to drop us a line through the socials. If you want to hear a bit more about what I thought of the conference and my perspective, I did a chat with Nick Rome over on Human Factors Cast, and that will be going live very shortly. So feel free to go and wander over there and listen to what we had to say there. And you'll also hear from some more of our interviewees over there too. But as for now, thank you ever so much for your time, and we shall see you on the next one.
Thank you for listening to 1202, the Human Factors Podcast. Please do get in touch with your thoughts, questions, and comments. You can contact us on social media such as Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook at 1202 Podcast. See you next time. And remember, it's more than just common sense.